Hi, Sabrina.
Hi, Natalie.
Welcome to the CCA podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so
It's really
much.
nice to have you, and really looking forward to this conversation. I think it's an
Yeah, me too.
important one.
Mm, me too.
So why don't you just let the audience know who you are, and we'll get started.
Great. Well, thank you. First of all, this is so cool being on a podcast. Thank you for asking me. What an honor. Yeah, so I'm Sabrina Sandhu. I am a single mom of two. I, I have a 21-year-old son, an 18-year-old daughter. Both are in university. I'm third generation born Canadian. So I actually live up the house from actually up the block from the house that my grandmother was born in back in 1929. And her dad migrated to Canada in 1906. Yeah, I'm currently in the process of a career lift, and I've invested in myself to take this lovely course here that you're offering for life and wellness coaching. And I get to do what I love, which is practicing presence with people. And yeah, I ended a 24-year career at Rogers, and that where I learned a lot, right? Organizational development, operations, money management, sales. We did a bit of coaching, but what I've learned in this last little while has been truly transformational for me. And I can say for others that I've been in contact with. Our class is in its last week, and a big group of them, the majority of the class, is actually meeting right now in person. I wasn't able to join because I'm so far away. I'm over in BC, but they're all meeting, and yeah, I've got a little bit of FOMO there, but but they'll send pictures. So yeah, that's a bit of me. I guess one other thing to mention is that I am a recovering alcoholic, and I'm in the process of removing stigma and helping folks normalize healing from addiction, right?
Mm,
So
mhm.
that's why this course has made a big impact on me, and I'm hoping for others too. Yeah.
Wow, well, thanks for that intro. And I can't believe they're meeting in person. That's so
Yeah,
fun.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the new thing with these Zoom classrooms. We don't, when people meet in person, it's like an event.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've created a little bit of a community there. So.
Yeah,
Mhm,
yeah. What a
mhm,
great group. What a great group to
mhm,
have.
mhm,
And I'm thinking about a couple things you said. So
mhm.
career uplift.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard that term before. That's
Mhm,
neat. Is that
mhm.
something you came up with, or is that something
Yeah.
that's trending
Well,
now?
no, well, well, hopefully it'll get trending, but it's something actually that came up in coaching.
Mm,
I was going through a little bit of a lull after ending that career. And I had the fortunate conversation with a wonderful coach, and I was able to shift my paradigm on my situation and see this as a career lift for myself. Now I get to, with the package that I got, I get to take a step back and look at my life and evaluate what I want to do and where I want to go when I'm at the halfway point, right? 45. I just celebrated a birthday.
nice. Congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I get to, like I said earlier, invest in myself, right? And that's what this coaching course has done for me. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I really like that term. And so you came to the Life and Wellness program,
Yes.
and tell me, like, what is there a link between life and wellness and your journey in sobriety?
Oh, absolutely. I started my recovery journey probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And in that journey, I had to build my own support network. And while I was going through that and in that mindset that I was in then, it was hard for me to connect with anyone to really offer that help that I needed. I was fortunate enough to have a fabulous therapist. His name is Augustine, and he took a real coach approach to our conversations. On one hand, we did a lot of different therapies to deal with the post-traumatic stress that I had in getting through all of those emotional barriers that I was hanging on to. And then coupled with, talking about where I'm at in my present moment and what potentially could be when I remove those negative barriers, he opened up a whole new world for me. And that was all through conversation and through what I'd like to call his coaching practice, right? But for me, it felt really good. And I went through a lot of different therapists, a lot of different counselors. But with his lived experience and his ability to step back and have that coach's mindset that we talk about, it really made me feel safe. And, that I had someone to help shine that light in places of darkness that I was a little bit afraid to navigate through. So that was a really big push for me once I started to get my bearings in my sobriety, that I wanted to give that back. And I wanted to offer that to other women, even youth that are going through the same challenge, and men, and however anybody identifies themselves, right? Like we're all people. So whoever wants to get on that healing path, I'm right there with them. So
Wow, what a beautiful gift to pay forward.
Yeah.
And so when you think about, well, I know the questions that I get from people when they are coming into a program, considering a coaching program, or even thinking about, coming close to the end of a coaching program. The question they often have is, what to do with the coaching certification. And also a bit of the journey, to get here, to get to this place. And so I'm hearing a lot of, now I know you're at the end of yours, so you may not know exactly, although I know you have exciting plans that I want to talk about. But for now, the path that got you here, can you say a little bit more for those people who are wondering about, like, am I on the right path? Is coaching for me? What do I need to know? That sort of thing. People who have maybe even a similar background than you.
Well, yeah, for sure. That's a really great question. And the first thing I would ask is, how does it feel? How does it feel? And, reflecting on that with pause and earnestness to actually understand what, and the discernment to understand, that these feelings are for what I'm doing today. And understanding that, this coaching practice, there's potential to make a whole lot of money. There is, definitely, but it's that intrinsic motivation, right? That drives me. And what I would say to anybody else who's on their coaching path is ask yourself, what makes you happy? What makes you get up and jump up in the morning and excited about life, right? It's not just about work. It's about your purpose and what you feel is important. And exploring that with some patience, right? And pause is what's going to get you that ticket. And whatever you decide is right for you, and I can boldly say that it'll work out. It will. I have faith in that. I know that there is something else orchestrating this universe, whether it's a higher power or whatever it is, right? We're all in this to grow and learn. And I feel like if you're following your passion and just asking yourself how this feels and if it's right for you, then those answers are going to come, right? The beauty about this coaching program that you offer is that there's coaching available for me. So, and I've taken full advantage of that with our group. And I have my life coach. She's in our class and I utilize her all the time. And, having those conversations really helped me to reinforce that I am on the right path and that I am doing the right things. So the advice that I would give is ask yourself how you're feeling, and get coached. Get coached by your peers, by the community that we have available to us in this fabulous network. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool what you just said. I mean, to turn that into a question of how do you feel And then, you know, everything else you said. But so when you said to yourself, how does it feel? Like when you were considering this program, for example, what feeling were you looking for?
I was looking for a settled feeling, a feeling of ease, a feeling of serenity. And that's something I look for often, right? And it doesn't come just like that, but I do know what it feels like to be stressed. I do know what it feels like to be living in fear. I do know what it feels like to have challenges in front of me and feel like I don't know what to do, and just, you know, just taking a breath to make it to the next step. So I know what it feels like to feel not good. I also know what it feels like to pause and to have those feelings on rest for a little bit, right? And to see, okay, where is it that I want to go? What is it that I'm dealing with? What's in front of me right now? And where do I have control in terms of making an impact or influencing? And that's really what's been driving me in this focus and direction.
I'm noticing the questions you're asking yourself, and I wonder if those questions have changed since coaching.
Yeah, the questions change often. You know, every time I get coached, I hear new questions. And one of the questions that another peer in our group asks is, what value do you see in yourself? Right. And that's a huge one. That's a huge one. I spent a lot of my life people pleasing, right? Like trying to, it means a lot to me to have people around me that are happy. And if I can help make that happen, then of course, right? Like I'm going to try to do that. But I was doing that to the expense of my own feelings, my own values, and, you know, learning that lesson, which wasn't always easy, was one that, got me to keep asking myself these types of questions. And yeah, the questions change. They change on the daily, depending on, you know, where I'm going, what I'm doing. But today I actually feel a lot more freedom in exploring, you know, what is possible and what is out there. Yeah, so.
Yeah, well, and I guess what I was wondering is because I feel like a lot of people, and I know and hear a lot of people ask themselves the why questions, and you know, the closed-ended questions, the questions that lead to resentment or guilt or justification, or you know, all the like the fight, flight, or freeze responses. And in coaching, we teach, you know, the open-ended inquiry and the questions that begin with what. And I love that your questions change every day, because we realize the repertoire of questions that are available to us as coaches, right? When we start to study questions and we start to discover questions. But a couple of things you said really stand out to me. One is the fact that you've been getting coached or being coached throughout this program. And the other thing was like-minded people around you. One of the things that I think is really underrated that people don't realize, and I'll tell you a funny joke. I think it's funny. I don't know if it's funny, but but I think one of the things that people don't realize is how, when you become a coach, you are actually being coached almost as much as you're practicing coaching, because you're doing these coach exchanges. And so I have people who actually approach me to be coached, and I'll do an intake call or a discovery call, say, you know, yeah, sure, you know, you can be coached. I mean, or you could learn the skills of a coach. You don't have to be a coach to learn the skills of a coach, because it comes down to communication skills, right? Really powerful, influential communication skills. So you can be coached, or you can take a program that will cost you probably the same and be skilled as a coach and get coached.
You know, it is funny.
So much more, there's so much more value there. And you get to coach yourself, and you get to create this healthy mind and yourself. And then that brings me to the like-minded people. What would you say is, I mean, you can speak to your group, because I think it's such a beautiful group of people that somehow the universe brought together.
Yeah.
What would you say is that magic or secret in the coaching
Oh,
class?
for our group? Oh, I'd have to say 100% that it's the vulnerability. Every single one of us in that group has exposed what's going on internally and put it out there and been like, okay, let's go. And we all embrace each other in that way, right? It's true, authentic truth. And that's the beauty of it. And yeah, your joke was funny, but it's reality. It really is. Like, I paid a bunch of money to take this course, and who knew I was going to get all this coaching out of it? And that's really where the benefit I've seen for myself, because when I'm getting coached, yeah, I'm realizing different things about me, but I'm also experiencing what it feels like to be on the receiving end. So I can then, when I'm picturing myself or when I'm in that coaching session, I know what it feels like to be on that flip side, right? And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful way that you've put this together, the program together, and the mentorship and all of that in the community. I had no idea that all of these people existed. Which is so fantastic, and it is about being with like-minded people and growing in that way, in that vein. And I'm so grateful to our class. Every single person in there, we've stepped out of our comfort zones and gotten creative. I didn't even think I could paint, or let alone put together a video. But we've done all those things, right, together. And we've formed lifelong friendships. I know this because we've already got a cadence of meeting in our calendars for every month. So,
great.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
so
cool.
great. I don't hear that. I don't often get to see that side, because from the perspective of like the faculty of Canada Coach, we often don't get to hear and see how close the students get. And, we know that vulnerability is hard. And I wonder what permitted that to happen in your group, do you think?
I think it's a domino effect too, right? Like, when one person opens up, it creates a safe space for someone else to open up, right? Once we and I can only speak from my own direct experience, right? And once I saw that, this is a space where people are actually being authentically themselves, like saying who they are, how they feel, it felt a lot easier for me to take my mask off, right? And say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to try to be all in this. I'm going to learn for what I need to learn and be me. And you know what? Honestly, Natalie, I had coaching sessions within the class where I talked to my coach about how awkward I felt. I did feel awkward at times, being on camera. I constantly look at myself. Is my hair okay? Like, do I have anything on my teeth? Am I, presenting myself all right? And even in those little things, talking about that with my coach really opened up a whole different level of vulnerability for me. I thought, wow, I'm vulnerable. I've exposed to everybody who knows me that I'm in recovery. And that in service to help others, right? To say that I've been there, but going through this class and in exposing my vulnerability towards even my learning, that was a whole new experience, right? I couldn't pretend I was the expert, because I'm not. And to be able to actually put myself in a place where, yeah, you're free to learn in the pace and way that you want to, that was amazing. And with people that are doing the same. So it was great.
Yeah. And, I think the reason I ask is because one thing I do hear often from adult learners is this intimidation of going back to school, so to speak, or, being in a classroom for the first time in 35, 40 years, some of them, and we have a woman who just joined our program. She's 83 years old. It's like so fun. It's the best. I'm just like in awe. And it's incredible and sharp and witty and so fun. So I think that any age is a good age, but also it's okay to bring fear.
Mm-hmm.
I think the definition of courage is not to avoid fear, but to do it anyway with the fear.
Yeah.
And this idea of stepping into that space of vulnerability, opening up yourself, as you said, to be coached on it and to learn from each other. Like that's what creates that bond in these groups. And I really love that. I love that. I couldn't have imagined that when we were building this community. I didn't know what to expect. And it's just been so many gifts that have come from, that have emerged that we didn't even realize.
Nice.
And so now you are at the end of your certification anyway, but not at just beginning your real journey, I think. Tell me a little bit about what you have planned.
Lots on the go. Lots on the go. Through coaching again, it opened up a door for me to go back to a recovery house that I went through back in 2017. I went to Charlford House for Women. It's a recovery home here in Burnaby in our community. It's been around since 1970, and over 2,000 women have gone through that home. And I decided through coaching that I was going to go knock on their door and ask if I can do some coaching there. And the director said, for sure, 100%. You lived here for 90 days. You know what the rules and the go is. So go for it. So I have been. And that's what I've been doing 1 day a week. I've been spending a full day at Charlford where I do group coaching in the morning. And then in the afternoon after lunch, I do one-on-one coaching with the ladies. And because I've been doing this for a couple of months now, I'm seeing and they're seeing the transformation and the gift that coaching gives. And I had a conversation with the director there just recently, and she said to me, she's like, Sabrina, the amount of space that you open up for these ladies to be able to talk and to look in their own mirror, in their own way, in their own time is just so valuable. We have counselors, we have therapists, and they're great and they're wonderful, and they deal with the trauma, right? They deal with all of that deep rooted stuff that we need professional help for. But what a coach does is open up that space for the client to be able to explore what they want to explore in their own time, in their own way. And then I get to shed some light on some other questions that I can ask. And I'm often, every time I ask, like not every time, but most of the time when I ask a question, the response is, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of going there. And I know that feeling. Because that's happened to me too. So I am hoping that we can make this a permanent thing where I can provide coaching and practicing presence with folks that are wanting to explore recovery. And that's near and dear to my heart. And I am going to put a call out there. Anyone who is wanting to talk about coaching and recovery, please, please, please reach out to me. Because the conversation is just getting started, and there's so much more that we can do. So much more that we can do. One quick thing that I wanted to add is that in my last couple of years that I was at Rogers, it was a big transition for me to come forward with my recovery journey. And I was given the opportunity to be able to use the platform at Rogers to talk about recovery. And I had gotten a group of folks together, and we had a panel discussion for all employees across Canada on what it means to be living in recovery and what resources we use, what community outlets there are available to you. And coaching is something that I really firmly believe, we need for all employees at every level, whether it's frontline or executive. In the realm of life and wellness, in the realm of career development, in the realm of just moving forward, right? So, yeah, big plans. We'll see what happens.
Well, and that's actually super interesting that you said that. So I'm curious to know, from the point of view of being in therapy, Do you think is the biggest difference, like for the women that you're coaching at the center, or just on a personal level? What's the difference between coaching and therapy for you, the client?
For me, coaching, so therapy really helped me to understand the things that happened with me, what was going on there, right? There was that big fog, and that's how I can describe it, as a big fog of my past. And it was just, I couldn't see through it to understand the things that went on. There's a lot of trauma that happened without getting into the specifics of it, right? But my therapist was able to hear me and understand, okay, and use different techniques. Like we used all different, there was cognitive behavioral therapy. There was even hypnotherapy, there's acupuncture therapy, there's all different types, which I've explored all of them, my God. But the difference is that with the trauma piece of it, and the therapist, like when I think about Augustine, he sat with me in diagnosing what mental health issues that I was exhibiting, and all of that. But the coaching side of it is about being in my present state, where I'm at today, what I'm thinking and feeling today, and what the possibility of tomorrow is. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. No, and I think it's an important difference, because often people, some people think the lines between coaching and therapy are blurred. Some people don't really understand the difference. And so to me, it's important to say exactly what you just said, which is, a therapist will diagnose, assess, evaluate, and even, prescribe, whereas if they're clinical, whereas a coach does none of that, right? We're not evaluating or assessing, we're not diagnosing, we're really talking about or focused on the present, what's emerging, and where you want to go. And we learn from the past, right? There's this hindsight is 2020. Yeah, we can learn from the past and bring that forward, but we're not trying to do exactly what you just said, which is to explore the fog. That is about today. I mean, if there's fog today, we'll look at that, but it's not about the past and the trying to evaluate the past or understand it. It's more,
for sure.
Really, I think what I'm hearing is progressive. It's about looking forward, and that's what I really appreciate. And I find a lot of people actually pair the two. They have therapy and they have a coach. And they use them, uniquely for the services that they provide. And I think both are equally important and valuable to mental health and well-being.
I agree. What a relief for me though, when you mentioned in our coaching class, because you're our facilitator, when you mentioned, we're not therapists, I was like, oh, thank God, because I am not, like, I know what I went through. I know what my therapist talked to me about, and I know what my friends have gone through and what their therapists have talked to them about, but I'm not an expert there. I haven't gone to school to be able to diagnose someone. And that was such a relief. Oh, I don't have to be that expert.
Yeah, and that means no advice, no opinion, no interpretation. And that's, that do no harm principle in coaching is really about staying in that lane of inquiry, of reflection, of mirroring, of observation, versus opinionating or giving advice or consulting. Those are very different expertise. It's also an important part about coaches and what I also heard you say earlier, which was kind of neat. I'm reading a book called Dialogue and Coaching. And what's coming up the most is how we create meaning in dialogue. And so when you talked about the relationship with your therapist and how you reframed your situation in dialogue, right? This idea that we create meaning through conversation with others, through, that interaction. And I think that that's really important about something that, was so valuable in coaching is, number one, it's almost impossible for us to be objective about ourselves, right? To see ourselves objectively, which is why that mirroring and observation is so powerful in coaching. And the other thing is that opportunity to, you know, have somebody ask you those good questions that say it, and your answer is, well, I never thought of it that way. Isn't that the most beautiful moment in coaching, right? When someone says that.
100%, 100%. And the other thing that comes up while you're speaking is about the words that are being said. Often, you know, words are said. I think I'm saying something with that, using that word. The other person who's hearing it might think that I mean something, but unless the coach, and this is where the coach can pause and ask, what does that word mean to you when you say that? What's coming up for you? What do you just, and then the metaphors come through, and then we start to, as a coach, I can start to understand what's going on in my client's world. We're all in our own worlds, right? And we're just dipping into each other's and saying hello. And the more we're able to communicate with ease, the easier that is, right? So yeah, I find a lot of value in that too.
So tell me, ideally, what's the dream for coaching for you?
Ideally, the dream is to have a wellness facility where everyone feels welcome and good about coming to, you know. I think about when I first went to Charlford House, and that changed my life, like changed my life for the positive, so in so many ways. But the day that I was going there, I sat outside and smoked a whole pack of cigarettes. I know, so bad. And not wanting to go inside because I was like, oh my God, I'm having to go to a treatment facility. I was living in my own stigma. I was living in my own limited beliefs there, right? But like, you know, having these types of conversations, and back to the question that you originally asked, having these types of conversations, I want to open up a facility where people feel comfortable coming in and saying, you know what, I want to change my life. I want to have transformation, whether it's addiction to a substance, food, a behavior, whatever it is, right? Let's offer some programming, some workshopping, some tools, some questions that we can ask to have that paradigm shift. So that's where I want to go. But we'll see how we get there. So yeah.
I'm curious, you know, and maybe there's some people who are struggling with some form of addiction. So what, apart from, you know, the obvious things like the therapy or whatever else you know was around you, what was it, do you think, that made the difference for you to move to sobriety?
To move to sobriety? Yeah, my life became completely unmanageable, unbeknownst to me, right? I was the last one to know and see that everything, I was hanging on to my ego, hanging on to the way I thought things were going to be. And, you know, like, once I saw that I've exhausted all options for myself. I have completely depleted myself emotionally. I was at the lowest of my lows. Everybody's bottom is different in recovery. We know that. I was fortunate not to have such a low bottom where I lost everything. I didn't lose everything, but I lost a lot of myself. And it was after a number of relapses, right? Like I had relapse as a part of my story. And it wasn't until my last relapse where I realized, like, enough is enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I need to make a change. And that was when I remembered a 12-step program meeting that I had gone to in the past within my recovery journey. And I just went back there and I talked to one of the long timers that was there, and, you know, made friends and hooked in. And that was it. That was when it started for me. That was, and the change was, though, is that I decided that I needed that change. And that's the beauty of coaching. You know, the client gets to decide where they want to go, what they want to do. And we're assisting by asking questions to ensure they're getting to fullest answer for them, right? Which is that, yeah, because it happened for me. So I can see that it's possible for others too, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so nice about the way that you've come about this and your authenticity. I've always appreciated that about coaching, this idea of showing up where the client is and trusting the client to make that decision. And I know it sounds easy to say that, but when it's in action, you can really see the difference between a coach that trusts the client to make the decisions that are good for them and a coach that is still in that, I need to save, I need to fix, I need to lead, I need to, influence. And it's a really cool transition, usually around, I don't know, at some point in the program, halfway, 3/4 of the way through, and you kind of hear people get it. And it's so empowering for a client, but also for the coach to let go of knowing, of needing to know, to let go of needing to have the answers and needing to be the one to save somebody, right?
Yeah. That's all and well. It is. It's fantastic. But let me tell you, I tried coaching my son and all of that went out the window.
Yes, of course, that's you being triggered by your son. I try to coach my daughter, and I mean, I'm an CC level coach, and I still can't do it. I still can't.
So I'm no longer his coach.
Just do it. Do it my way.
So I know my limits.
That's the most humbling experience, is when you try to coach your children, for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you, well, actually, I have another question for you, which was you mentioned early on when we started talking that you are here to challenge, or I can't remember the exact words you used, but something about the stigma. Is there anything else that you want to say about that, or what is it that you want to challenge?
Well, from my own experience, I held on to the stigma too, like I had I not been so ashamed of being a recovering or an alcoholic, I probably would have gotten help a lot sooner. And shame is a funny one there, to explore, a funny emotion to explore, just because it can show up in so many different ways. And stigma is when I thought about an alcoholic, and before I even admitted to being one, I imagined them being homeless, having alcohol in a brown paper bag, and just not, like, my picture of an alcoholic was very different. I knew of alcoholics in my family, it's a family disease for sure. And the bar was set very different, right? And I didn't want to see myself as being a part of that group, right? And so that stigma for me was real. Then I experienced, once I got comfortable with it, I got very comfortable with recovery once I got comfortable with it. And funny thing is, I was shopping in Vancouver, just shopping in the mall. And one of my aunts, who's a beautiful woman, love her to death, amazing, beautiful woman. And I hadn't seen her for years, and she was grocery shopping. I'm grocery shopping. I'm like, oh my God, Auntie, I haven't seen you. Guess what? Guess what? I'm in recovery and I've been sober for blah, blah, blah years. And she was like, shh, why are you saying it so loud? And it was just like, and even after that, when I went back to work, I have lots of friends and whatnot, but still, there's judgment, and there's ideas, and there's perceptions, and I can't control what goes on outside. I can only control what's happening inside. But imagine, being able to walk freely and say, I'm recovering from this mental illness and doing this, and not having stigma attached to it. I'm recovering from alcohol addiction or substance addiction, and not being looked at like there's something deeply wrong, but instead looking at it as there's something deeply great that you want to look at yourself and make that transformation for yourself, right? So the more and more we talk about it, the more and more it gets normalized. And my kids, we talk about it openly. Their friends talk about it openly. I've been asked to speak about recovery in different forums, and I talk about it very openly. And it's just a wonderful, beautiful world if you take a moment to glimpse at it with that frame of mind. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's some kind of movement towards sobriety now. A lot of celebrities are talking about sobriety. A lot of, places ban alcohol now, like social gathering places and wellness institutes and so forth. So I feel like there's more being said about it than ever. I don't know if you have an impression as well, but
yeah, it's both ways, and I agree. Like, I'm not against people who drink at all. I think, I feel like banning it and whatnot, that those are decisions that get made. I don't know how they get made, but in terms of like self-discipline and self-awareness, there's things that we can do for that. But yeah, drinking and even like the whole pot movement, like everything there's a little bit more leniency in terms of availability for it. But yeah, there are a lot more celebrities and whatnot talking about recovery. And that's a great thing. That's freaking fantastic. There's a lot of celebrities that are in recovery that don't talk about it either. And that's fantastic too. That whatever floats your boat, right? Like whatever makes you feel comfortable about it. But in terms of, having community and society and workplaces where people can feel safe and feel good about what they're doing, and even in schools, removing that stigma that being in recovery is a bad thing, is something that I really feel strongly about. Yeah.
Yeah, and if we circle this back to coaching, the other thing that I really appreciate about coaching is this no labeling and this idea that you are not your past. Your past is not equal your present, right? That there is an opportunity for change. We are, coaching gives people permission to change. And I really think that that's something that is so needed in this world and in this, the space between people.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at the time and I'm thinking about what is it that you would say or that you would want to say about coaching to anybody considering becoming a coach or just wondering about the academy. What would you say?
I would say if you're looking for a job or somewhere, or to be able to place yourself to make a difference that is a quality difference for individuals, this is the place to be. This is I've been given tools and knowledge coupled with my past experience, right? Which then give me wisdom to be able to offer support for other people. Coaching is a space of authenticity, a place of truth, a place of growth, a place where, an individual can truly be an individual. Right. And I think coaching, if you're someone who loves people, someone who loves growth, and someone who loves to make a difference for other people, then this is a place to be. This coaching academy has not only fulfilled that need for me, but it's also given me a confidence that I didn't know was available to me. Like I'm sitting here doing a podcast with you. I did not think that was ever going to happen.
That's okay.
But yeah, so it's just an amazing wild ride. And if you want to invest in yourself, this is a fantastic place to do it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, what I heard in your group specifically, but also throughout the academy and from the most surprising people is, that they're intimidated by putting together a PowerPoint, or they're intimidated by giving a presentation, or they're intimidated by some of the exercises.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that people come together and support each other through those things. And it's such a beautiful thing to see the pride come over your faces when you do deliver the presentation and you do like get on the podcast. That this is such a, it's so great to overcome our own expectations, like outdo even our own expectations of ourselves, you know, this idea that you can surprise yourself in what you're capable of, and that's really what you're doing for others as a coach as well, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And, you know, as you're saying that, I'm thinking about the other piece that makes this coaching academy so fantastic, which is the class. You know, I never thought that I was going to make all these new friends. I didn't know that I was going to know deeply about their lives, and vice versa, that they're going to know about mine too. And it is about like-minded people, right? Like being around people that want to do the same kind of things and have the same types of values. And yeah, the academy opened that up. And of course we were a little bit nervous about doing I was nervous about presentations for sure, but yeah, growing together in that lesson was awesome. So yeah, it was a good experience for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great way of summing it up, growing together. I think people who come together to learn really get a chance to nurture each other's growth, and that's really great, really fun. It's a fun and privileged place to sit, let me tell you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Would you like to tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am Sabrina Sandhu, and my face is there, so you'll know who that is. But yeah, or through the coaching community. If you're watching this and are a part of the community, definitely reach out to me. If you want to talk about recovery, whether it's for yourself or ideas on how we can remove stigma and make this grow, you know, I'm open to that. And I just want to say thank you, Natalie. This has been such an honor and privilege for me. You know, this is so amazing. I was telling my kids that I get to be on a podcast. So this is cool. Well, thank you.
Now your cool level just went up.
A little bit. I'd like to think so.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again. And I really appreciate this time with you.
Oh, great. Thank you.